I walk into work and the rug's pulled out from under me. After 20 years of working my way up through an organisation that I adored, all of a sudden, see you later, you're out the back door, you're made redundant, along with the entire team of 29 people that worked for me. The whole creative division, because PricewaterhouseCoopers said numbers didn't add up, so the creative division had to go. All of a sudden, I sat there and was, what the hell do I do now? What do I do next? I was in this, I remember in the meeting, this shutdown phase of the room kind of went blurry. You're hearing what they're saying, but you're not really sure you're hearing what they're saying. And you feel like you're looking at a movie of yourself and thinking, I've got to try to remember what's going on right now and keep it together. So I walked out, and then the next few months was definitely, what the hell do I do next? I'm in my mid-40s. I'm only halfway through my working life. And what do I do? What transferable skills do I have? I've worked in quite a niche industry, being in visual merchandising in retail. I was a senior manager. There's not a lot of roles like that in Melbourne. And all of a sudden, after my whole career working up to that space, it was like, well, what do I do now? So it was absolutely about taking stock, thinking, what do I love doing? What do I want to do? What really lights me up and excites me? But what kept going through my mind over and over for quite a few months, and particularly the first couple, was how do I be a mum that my daughter's really proud of? Like, how do I make sure I'm that woman that she looks at and goes, that's my mum and she's awesome? How do I do that? I was like, talking about the millennial mindsets and the young ones, I've got a little 11-year-old and I thought, no, I can't wallow, I can't, panic. What have I got to do? I've got to show her that shit happens, we get kicked in the guts, and off we go, right? How do I be a good wife and know that my husband's clearly having a meltdown because my life's falling apart, and how do I make sure I'm a good wife for him to come home to that isn't depressed and struggling, that I'm showing him step by step I can do this? But most importantly, how do I be somebody that I'm proud of? That I can look in the mirror and think, you know what, I can do this. How do I be somebody that when I'm walking down the road or through a shopping centre and I see a colleague that I used to work with, I don't think, fuck, how do I, and hide. How do I be that person that does, hey, yeah, it's so nice to see you, how are you? Because actually it's them that shits themselves because they don't know how to talk to you, and I've experienced that recently and it's terrifying. So how do I be that person? So, and it really came down to, what does success look like? Because success had always been the corporate ladder. I'd been a manager, had created departments, I'd created brands, I'd done so much stuff that was amazing. I'd worked around the world doing so. But what did success look like now? That all of a sudden I had no network. I had I had nothing else planned. So it was time for me to take stock on what did that mean. So success for me now is about flexibility. It's about learning. It's about doing multiple jobs. It's about making sure that I meet as many people as I can and that I experience what I can and be the best person that I can possibly be and the most amazing role model for my daughter. Makes me emotional every time I think about how to be a good mum, because God, we do carry around a lot of guilt. I went back to work when she was 4 months old, full time, because my job was so important and it was such a big deal. And I never took a sick day because, again, my job was so important and I was so good at it. And then all of a sudden you think, shit, I should have taken a sick day. Probably had a bit of time there. Anyway, so then what happened was I went on a bit of a self-discovery journey. I discovered General Assembly. Congratulations, you all have too. And it was amazing. But what it did was it exposed me to the happiness concierge. By doing workshops here, I came in and I was like, okay, what do I do? And because it's all very expensive, all the different things you've got to find and look out for. And I thought, what am I going to do? Came here and met Ewan and Sadie and thought, holy shit, this is the most amazing mindset. I'd been in a corporate mindset that was very much, you are your job description, you follow a path, and that's what you do when you have those HR discussions. And even as a manager, we sort of had to pigeonhole people a little bit because that was the corporate way. But when I discovered Happiness Concierge and General Assembly, it was very much about this entrepreneurial mindset. And why can't you do several things? Why can't you have a side hustle? Why can't you have a portfolio career? Why can't you be more than one job in your corporate landscape? And it actually changed my world. So I dived in. I did boot camp. I've done heaps of studies with Rachel and the team, and I cannot speak highly enough about how positive it is and how it is an easy step-by-step process. And now I get to work with clients that I truly get to work through wonderful ideas with, and frameworks that I know work because they've worked for me at a time when I was at my lowest. And I wanted to be able to hide in a shopping centre if I saw somebody and thought, what am I going to do? I'm the person that cried in interviews for the first 3 months after I lost my job. And yes, I did cry in every interview. It was mortifying. And I was explaining it to Vanessa earlier. I was like, it took me a while. I did cry, and it took me a while how to regroup and not do that. Cried at the gym when I joined the gym, all of that. Now I can be somebody that actually walks down the street and is really proud. And Happiness Concierge and this framework gave that to me. And as a result, I now can give that to a lot of other people. What I particularly feel passionate about, and you've heard today about different generations, and it's true. I work now, I've got an 11-year-old daughter, and so I've got one mindset at home, but all the people that I manage in my other life are all in their 20s. I'm 46. I'm the oldest person in my office by 15 years. So how do you stay relevant? How do you stay young? How do you stay learning and open-minded? It's a real challenge, but it's an exciting one. I'm obsessed with podcasts, all the different things that I've learned, doing General Assembly workshops, Happiness Concierge content. How many times can I dive in? And now what I love doing is working with people to do so as well. Because I am very passionate about people that, as we're getting older, we're not sure where we fit. A lot of my clients are mums returning to work, or people in their 30s and 40s not knowing what their next step is. Is it a side hustle? Can they do that while they're working? Is it a next step? Is it a pivot and a rework? What do they need to do, and how can they go about doing that? Because it is traumatic thinking, I'm 46 and I'm only halfway through my working life, and I want the rest of it to be amazing and something that I'm really passionate about and enjoy. So what I'd love doing is working with clients with Brand You, or communicating with influence, or one-on-one coaching, to say there are some step-by-step processes that you can absolutely do to stay relevant, to understand and connect. And I've found, for me, it's made me a much better manager of a lot of young people to take that approach as well as giving me the confidence to work out what am I going to do next, and how am I going to approach people, and how am I going to learn. I can't speak highly enough of taking on an entrepreneurial mindset and making sure that you realise that there are opportunities, there are ways of looking at things and giving it a go, and staying positive and how it does help. You've heard today about reaching out and saying hello and are you okay? I absolutely know that that can work, and that it does connect with people, and that, along with understanding that there's so many multi-generations, but knowing how to brand you and how to actually pull yourself together and commit and re-pivot and adjust and work with everybody, it absolutely can change your working life and what happens next. It's been wonderful for me, and I love the opportunity to work with anyone else in this space, because I know that being kicked in the guts and reinventing, it's not always easy. It sometimes is really tough. Spoke to Vanessa about that this morning. Sometimes it's really tough and it takes a while. But when you do reinvent and you pivot and refocus, it can be extraordinary, really exhilarating, and you just never know who you're going to meet and the difference it's going to make to your life. So I urge all of you, take on an entrepreneurial mindset, even in a corporate world. See opportunities, go for it, and you just never know what's going to happen.